Let's get into the conversation today. Phil Steele, the independent list maker out there. He's not affiliated with any like he just does his own thing. He's got his own website that he goes out here, he does predictions and he does previews and all this sort of thing. He came up with a list of people who he considers to be all SEC preseason players going into the 2024 season, and 7 Auburn Tigers have made that list between the first and fourth teams of those respective lists. So we're going to get into the players that made the list and talk about, hey, how do we feel about what Phil Steele said about those Auburn Tigers? Let's start on the offensive side. We'll start with the players that made it on offense, and then we'll flip over to the defense after the break. First and foremost, as a first team all SEC running back.
Makes sense.
The man, Jarquez Hunter. 159 carries last year, 909 yards, 5.7 yards per carry, 18 receptions for 118 yards, and 7 total touchdowns last year for Jarquez Hunter, who is Phil Steele's first team all SEC running back for 2024. Now, to be clear, he had 2 running backs on his first team going into this season. It was Jarquez Hunter, and Montrell Johnson from Florida was the other one. But Jarquez Hunter made first team all SEC at running back. Mike G, what do you feel about your guy? Because let's be clear, Mike G was on the Jarquez Hunter train very early in his freshman season.
He would have.
Said he was going to break records at Auburn. Senior year here, Jarquez Hunter, first team all SEC preseason. How you feeling about it?
It's been one kind of unfortunate thing after another for Jarquez. Look, he came up just short of 1,000 yards. There are those of us in the media that believe he's poised for a breakout season. So that means above and beyond his production, which firmly puts him in the 1,000-yard back range. If you're going to run for 1,000 yards in this league, you deserve to be on the all-SEC list. First team means 1,200 yards or more, which I think is realistic for Jarquez this year. We'll see. Now, Hugh Freeze doesn't have a great history of producing 1,000-yard backs. That's not really what his system does. But he also has said openly he's never had as many talented backs as he's had here at Auburn. So we'll see what they come up with for Jarquez. Look, just kind of going back to Jarquez here, 5.7 yards per carry, Ike, is efficient. It's efficient. And I mean, that's a first down every 2 times he touches the ball, right? So once you get into that category, you're looking pretty nice. Only 7 touchdowns was a little disappointing on the season, and I thought he was underutilized in the pass game. I really did. He is a great catcher of the ball out of the backfield. 159 carries, they're looking to see that go up as Peyton Thorne's carries go down. 130-some carries for Peyton last year. He says, I don't want to run the ball that much. So there's going to be a mix of him handing that to the running back or making more pass attempts for him, as they've got to get that way up for Peyton Thorne from last year. Either way, that's going to be more production for Jarquez Hunter as a primary back in the system. If he stays healthy, I think he 100% deserves to be on this list. Not only now, but at the end of the season, we're probably talking about Jarquez Hunter as an all-SEC performer.
Okay, so all SEC running back. Last year, just for reference, do you know how many yards the leading rusher in the SEC had last year? Just give me a random guess if you don't know. I didn't know. I just looked it up. So.
Mizzou.
1,627 yards. Cody Schrader from Missouri was the leading rusher in the SEC last year.
No?
Want to venture a guess at what the number 2 running back in the SEC had in total yards? No. 1,158. There were almost 500 yards that separated number 1 and number 2. Number 2 was Quidshawn Judkins. Crazily enough, the third leading rusher in the SEC last year.
He had 1,100 yards rushing.
Jalen Daniels.
Yeah, he had 1,100
Daniels.
I remember looking at that list, looking at his Heisman stats.
He had 11.
At one point, he was like the second leading rusher in the league. But yeah. And so, like I said, it's kind of underscores what a crazy season he had. But, is Jarquez 1,600 yards of offense? I don't know if he'll get enough carries for that, but 12 to 1400.
I don't know about 1,600. 1,200 is probably I'm thinking 1,200 yards is a good place for him to be able to land. That would have made
How
him the
many
number
yards can
2
he rack up before
rusher
they
in the
get to
conference
Oklahoma?
last season if he had eclipsed
That is my
1,200
question,
yards.
right? Can he rack up 600-700 yards by the time they get to Oklahoma? If he can't, because you got A&M in there,
question.
right? You got New Mexico in there. You got Arkansas, who should be like New Mexico in there because they're terrible, and you've got Cal, and they didn't run the ball particularly well on Cal last year. I mean, they did. Oh, they were okay. They were okay, but mm-hmm. Yeah. And Damari, I think, got knocked out of that
They
game.
did okay. It was again,
But
those turnovers killed
ultimately,
them, but they were doing
if he's
all
going
right.
to play game one, I don't think 12 to 1,400 yards is out of the question. And then if he has a couple of breakout performances, who knows? Maybe we're talking about the leading rusher in the SEC.
Yeah, hopefully again,
Yeah.
I'm this is a season where I'm hoping Jarquez Hunter finishes in the top 3 in rushing. Top 3 in rushing would be a good place for him to be able to land, and I think that would put him in a space to be able to be on this list at the end of the year as well. So Jarquez Hunter, I mean, whether he's the best back in the he's earned the right to at least get consideration for the best back in the SEC this year. I think if Quinshon Judkins had returned, it would have been Judkins, but with him moving on to Ohio State, Jarquez Hunter at least deserves the consideration. I know other running backs that were on this list as far as second team and stuff like that. Rocket Sanders, who is now, I think, at South Carolina, was on the list. So there's a couple of other notable guys, and of course the guy who was with him, the guy at Florida, also on that list. But Jarquez Hunter, number 1 as far as field steal is concerned, at least 1A and 1B with the guy from Florida. Moving on. Next on the list is a guy that is on the, if I'm not mistaken, he was second team all SEC performer. According to Field Steal. Let me make sure I'm not lying to y'all. He was on the second team all SEC at tight end. Rivaldo Fairweather, who had 53 targets, the most targets on the team last year, 38 receptions, the most receptions on the team last year, 393 yards, 151 yards after the catch, 6 drops, but 6 touchdowns for Rivaldo Fairweather. Comes in at second team all SEC according to Field Steal.
I think
in his
second team is pretty
SEC
deserved.
rankings.
Now, look,
what are you feeling about this one, Mike?
Type of receiver in Auburn, you got to be a little bit skeptical based on how the pass game went last year, and that quarterback returns. Now, I wouldn't put like what we saw last year on Peyton. Now that we've had a chance to hear from Hugh Freeze and we put it all together, kind of what went wrong there. But if they run as much 12 personnel as I think they're going to run this year, then Rivaldo Fairweather has a chance to solidify his spot on second team all SEC. But, again, a potential with any improvement, a potential first team all SEC. Hear me out on this one. He garnered this spot with a quarterback that only threw for 1,700 yards total last year. So it's not like he put up mind-blowing numbers, but clearly you can see the potential that is Rivaldo Fairweather. And so, a preseason is about projecting what you think they'll do. And that's a mix of their talent and what they did the previous season. So what he did the previous year, weighing so little in the numbers into this, you got to think that they're looking at Rivaldo Fairweather and saying, this guy has crazy talent, and we think that Auburn is going to utilize him better this year. So I like him on second team. I don't think you can really make an argument for first team, what we've seen. But I think that he can work his way there by the end of the season, certainly.
Yeah.
In all college football.
He said he wants to be one of the best tight ends in all of college football this season. So so if he's gonna do that, then he's got to be either there's another Brock Bowers out there in the SEC, or he's got to be first team all SEC by the end of the season if he wants to be one of the best in the country. In front of him was Caden Priestcorn, the tight end at Ole Miss. Do you think some of this of what you're talking about here with not necessarily having shown it on the field because of a lack of a passing prowess for Auburn has to do with the Freeze 4 effect? They feel as if or Phil Steele specifically in this instance, feels as if the threat of those outside receivers
Yeah,
opens
I
up
do.
more
I think that
opportunities for a guy
if
like
Cam
Rivaldo
Coleman
Fairweather
becomes a
going
real
into this year
threat,
in the
and
pass game.
I think he'll show that from game one, it's going to open up opportunities for everybody. But he's not going to be a guy that you'll be able to key in on if they can get the other guys going. So with Lambert-Smith joining the team, as you know, he was Penn State's leading receiver last year. If he brings just the production he brought last year, Auburn is way better. I mean, he had almost twice as many yards as Auburn's leading receiver last year at Penn State. So, you know, if we're seeing improvement from him even in this system, then yeah, I think that the people around Rivaldo make him better in this coming season. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you mentioned him. Let's go ahead and talk about him. Newcomer to the SEC and Auburn made the list for all SEC preseason, and that is Keandre Lambert-Smith, the wide receiver transferred in from Penn State. He is third team all SEC preseason. Last year at Penn State had 85 targets with 53 receptions, 673 yards, 336 yards after the catch, 5 drops, but 4 touchdowns for Keandre Lambert-Smith. If he did this, like you said, he'd have been the leading receiver on Auburn's team last year, right? He'd have been the guy, you know, from the wide receiver position.
Yeah.
What do you feel about him
more
getting third team all
drops and
SEC as
touchdowns
a
is
newcomer
disappointing.
here?
Like, you never want to see that ratio there. But look, man,
Right.
85 targets,
I mean,
man.
but for the number of targets
like,
he had, I think you know you'll take
nobody
5
came
drops
close.
with.
Nobody sniffed 85 targets, right? Like Rivaldo had 53, but you know, Jay, who was an actual wide receiver, only had like 40 something. So he.
So for context,
Yeah,
Keandre Lambert-Smith had 53 catches.
Come
Rivaldo
on,
had
man.
53
They got to throw the ball
targets.
more, and you go out and you get a guy like this because you feel like he's going to give you more confidence. Now, Hugh Freeze has said repeatedly that he feels like if I put better pass catchers around Peyton Thorne, Peyton is a better quarterback. And now, look, you don't go out and get these guys and you know not throw the ball and then have a record low of pass attempts for your quarterback in your career. They know that number needs to go north of what it was last year significantly if they're going to have a chance to win games next year. And Keandre Lambert-Smith gives you that little bit more confidence, not only with his ability, but with his experience. With his experience, there's not a ton of experience in that wide receiver room that you are willing to depend on. So, yeah, I like Keandre. It's interesting when you Penn State people they're really not salty about him, and I tried to figure out whether they actually believe that he was not a great teammate or if they're just saying that because he left. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of it could be sour grapes. I mean, there's some people who, you know, feel whatever about him. I think that he's going to bring a ton of experience, like you said, leadership to this locker room, just based upon the fact that he knows what he's doing. Now, is he the mature rah get everybody together when hey we need a big catch on this next drive, let's pull the receivers together? It's like, hey man, it's on us this drive. I don't know if he's that kind of guy in the locker room. I don't know if he's you know, we're behind and it's halftime and he's in there rallying the troops kind of. I don't know what kind of person he is to that level, but he's shown the ability to go out there and make plays. And you need playmakers, as Coach Freeze has said, as you just said, around Peyton Thorne. You need somebody who's going to go make a play for him every now and then. That's going to take a 2-yard route and turn it into a 30, 40-yard situation. That's going to be able to stretch the defense and make them have to respect the fact that he can throw it over the top, and you need all those things, and he provides the ability to do some of that stuff. He's shown the ability to do it at the highest level, P5 football. So third team all SEC performer right there. So those are the only 3 guys that made the list for Auburn's offense: Jarquez Hunter, Rivaldo Fairweather, Keandre Lambert-Smith.
Yes.
For full episodes, check out the Midweek Report. going live on the War Report's YouTube channel at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time Wednesday nights. Until the next time, War Eagle.